like a street gang from the Warriors. Right on.
But the way they dress them and the way they make them speak um, is, I think, pretty racist.
And so
Maybe unintentionally so. Like, I think that honestly, the producers or I want to see beauty in everything. So what I would like to assume is that the showrunners were just pulling on a trope, like the same way that Star Trek uses a lot. Like they use the submarine movie trope in Balance of Terror. Like this is the I know you don't like the word, but the primitive society with the outdated ritual that our characters somehow have to work around or work their way through. It gives them a puzzle to solve. And Picard is very Kirk-like in this episode and his trickery and everything. Like, it's very much like Kirk would have handled it. Although they never would have let a woman fight another woman, I don't think, on the show. It would have been one of the main three doing the fighting.
I think, though, with the reputation that Star Trek had as being this like progressive show, and even at this point, you've got a Klingon as a member of the Enterprise crew,
right,
before Undiscovered Countries come out, and it's revealed that like, oh, they're homies now. Or not homies, but there's a truce.
There's a truce, so much so that Klingons are now serving in Starfleet. Yeah. Which is a big deal.
Yeah.
And it's not even addressed. Like, they just show
it. Yeah,
they're
like, there's a Klingon. And you just have to assume, like, oh, something must have
wonderful
happened. Something, like, like, there must be some kind of peace. For a show that progressive to
have an episode like this.
I mean, not even, I'll out-Sean you and be like, let's say that the producers are like, oh, like that's you guys think that's racist? No way! Like, wow! Like, let's assume that they had no clue that it would be construed as racist. They should have seen that coming, though. They should have been like, oh, should we do this? Because I mean, we could see how some people, like, this is just like, you just like wrote up this story and be like, oh, let's base it on this culture from
right.
from Africa or whatever.
Right.
Let's base it on that and be like, oh, well, like, it might seem kind of racist if we do that.
But if we cast it multiracial,
what about maybe we should change it up? I think they should have had more forethought.
They should have. They definitely should have. And it was still an intensely watchable episode for such a racist thing. I still had a lot of fun watching. Well, there were things I liked about it. Like, I loved we get to see more of the holodeck. We actually get to see the Dreamatorium lines on the wall.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed the fact that Tasha puts on a karate robe that serves no purpose.
It's called a gi.
All right, she puts on a gi.
Whatever, dude.
Whatever, loser. Karate geek.
Karate loser. Also, the fact that she's like computer, Aikido 1. And I'm like, what she does is like, that's not Aikido, that's judo.
See, I
at the
expensive sounded like a karate nerd.
Well, I mean, like, I'm not completely, I've never.
You're not an expert.
I
haven't studied with any of the great masters.
I want to say it's more judo than Aikido. Then again, maybe it is Aikido.
Maybe it's one of those things, like the word gentleman used to mean something different 200 years ago. It actually meant that you were, I think, I could be wrong about this, but I think it used to mean that you had titled lands, like you were a landowner. That's what gentleman actually meant. That's who the gentry were, I think. So, but now it just means a guy who's polite and mannered. Yeah. So maybe Aikido in 300 years means something different than it does now.
Maybe I don't know.
I think it's a mistake on the show's part. It sounds like World War III is going on.
What's going on?
I hope that my neighbors are a tempestuous group, to put it kindly, to use my gentlemanly manner.
Sean once told me a story. There's two little ones living there.
Yes,
2 boys.
Yeah, very small.
Like maybe like 8 and 5. 8 and 4, 7 and 4.
The little one's probably closer to 4 or 3, and the older one's like 7 or 8. Probably.
So the younger one had locked the older one out of the apartment.
Yes.
And so he's like banging on the door, like, "Let me in!" And like, unlock the door. And the little one says,
"I forgot how."
No, he said like, "I locked it on."
I locked it on accident. That's right. It was an accident.
And then the older one says, "Well, you better fucking unlock it on accident."
was just saying, oh my God, if my parents had heard me talking that way. I'm not saying I never did, but I'm saying that if my parents had heard me, or if a neighbor back when I was that age had heard me, they probably would have said something to my parents.
Whatever happened to that? Now everyone just like plays it close to the vest and doesn't get involved in other people's affairs.
Well, I think there's a lot more litigation surrounding interfering with other people's children than there used to be.
Not like you can just say something and be like, "Hey, don't talk like that."
Well, you also standards of parenting, I think, are radically different than they used to be. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. There used to be more of a standard, like little kids shouldn't curse, and now like parents are like, no, man, like let them figure it out on their own. They're just words.
Well, I think we also live in a culture of entitlement where a lot of parents are like, my kid can do nothing wrong.
Yeah.
Rather than you are a sinner who needs to get right with God, and all these adults are here to help you. There's also a suspicion of any adult dealing with a child who's not that child's parent or relative.
So what's your end game?
Yeah.
What's
And people have a problem with like, don't tell my kid what to do.
Yeah, I mean,
so
here's my jam. Like, I have a she turns 3 next month, and she's awesome. I hung out with her this morning.
She is pretty great.
She is so awesome. If she does something, if she does something she isn't supposed to do, and I'm not there, and you're like, hey, like if she repeats a curse word or something,
she says, I'm gonna make you come blood.
I'm gonna make you blood come.
I'm gonna kick you in the nuts so hard you're gonna bleed cum.
But no, she's like, like let's say she's like shit, and you say like, hey, don't say that.
Right.
I'll be like, oh, that's what I would tell her.
Right.
Go ahead. Like,
yeah.
I mean, if some adult is telling my kid what to do, if they're telling them the same thing I would tell them what to do, like I have no problem with that.
Well, I think I've got friends and a wife who is a teacher right now. We're trying to be a teacher. She just finished her student teaching, and you see that a lot as a teacher with like the parents coming in, and it's a really weird line to draw because like you're expected to be kind of a stand-in parent all day long, but there are certain lines you can't cross, so it sort of makes it hard to know where the line is depending on where the school is and how the parent reacts. Like I don't know. I think a lot of parents, it's sort of like when the episode of The Simpsons where George Bush spanks Bart.
Yeah.
And Homer loses his goddamn mind.
Yeah. But
like, I think that's a pretty exemplary of bad parenting. I'm sure there are still plenty of great parents in the world, but I don't know. Or maybe we're just more aware of it because we're older. Like, or do you remember parents interfering more when you were a kid? Like, parents that weren't yours saying things to you like, hey, don't do that, don't say that. I'm going to tell your parents. Or they would actually call your parents.
Yeah, no, well, I remember one time I got in huge trouble in junior high for skipping school. Like, we walked from school back to my friend's house, and actually we got there, and his older brother and his girlfriend had also skipped school that day, so, like, all 4 of us just hung out and, like, watched Labyrinth and, like, ate pizza, and it was dope.
That's what you do.
Yeah, and then at some point my friend was like, hey, let's go to the park, and I was like, I don't want to leave, dude. Like, we're not supposed to be out.
That's a bad idea.
And he's like, no, it's cool. Well, our friend's mom, like, we all lived in the same complex. Our mutual friend's mom saw us and knocked us out, and we got in trouble. And, like, now it's like, would parents really do that? Like, is that still a thing?
I don't know. Parents, write in and let us know. I don't know how many of our listeners are actually parents. We lost Julie Abel, I know, who is a parent. She would probably tell us. I think she would call. She's a very conscientious parent, my friend Julie. I don't know. I don't have any kids, and this is part of why I don't want to have kids, because I don't want to have to deal with other people's kids. As my kids' friends, as just existing, like, I mean, Beck and I are trying to move out of this complex this summer, and a big part of why is those little assholes across the hall. Like, most kids aren't like your kids, or your kid.
Yeah.
Or I hope my nephew grows up to be well-behaved. Right now he's great, but he doesn't really talk, so I don't know what he's actually like. And I assume my sister will be an okay disciplinarian. I'm praying. And,
like, that's the thing. Like, when my kid starts to throw a fit, we're like, no, this isn't going to happen. Like,
right.
We're not going to do this. And I'll, like, the whole, like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah, what do you do if does she ever start screaming in public? Well, like at Freebirds, but that was a year ago, right?
Well, I mean,
if she starts throwing a temper tantrum.
Well, it's getting to the point now where she, like, you can talk to her and she can
calm down.
You can be like, hey, like this isn't like when they're like 1 or 2 years old, they're
pretty much a terrorist who has a hostage.
Yeah, they're like, I don't want to be here. I don't know how to verbalize that or let anyone else know except to wail like a banshee.
Right. So, until you figure out by process of elimination
like, okay,
what's going to make me happy.
We have to leave.
Right.
But now it's, she, like, I can be like, hey, this, like, we're not going to do this. And I don't want to be, like, you don't want to be like, I'm going to spank your butt so hard. I'm going to beat you. No.
That was the threat I had.
I don't want to, it's like that very waspy type of, like, now Jeremy.
We agreed.
Like, we agreed that that if you were quiet, that mommy would buy you a new toy. Like that whole like negotiating, like
you don't negotiate with terrorists.
Yeah. And so, but at the same time, like I don't want to. Like I'm still the parent, she's still the kid. There's a power balance that is definitely
has to be struck.
That's at play there.
Right.
I don't want to abuse it where I'm like, I definitely want to.
You don't want your kid to be terrified of you, but you want her to respect your authority.
Exactly, and be like, look, kiddo, like this, like we can't do this. This is not a good look. I mean, like, and that's kind of that's my whole. That's my end game.
Right.
With raising my daughter, is that I'll be able to be like, hey, don't do this. You can do that. You can't do that. And that she'll trust me enough to be like, there has to be a reason. Like obviously there'll be times where I'm like, hey, you can't go to that Marilyn Manson concert, and then she's going to try to kill herself, Paris Jackson style. But at the same time, I mean, like there will be instances like that where I'll be like, no, you can't do this, and she'll just lose her shit for sure. I completely see that coming.
Yeah. I was going to say, what are you going to do when she starts learning what your buttons are and deliberately pushing them? Like I would say, like you're not
a very good writer. No one likes your stuff. Like, oh,
what?
That's what her buttons. That she like. Oh,
your podcast isn't that funny.
I tried.
I really gave it my best shot. You guys never even talked about Star Trek.
But I mean, I think I'm on a personal journey right now, and
dealing with anger, learning to incorporate it and get
like there was. I went to a concert this past Monday, and I went with my daughter's mother, and I was like, "Hey, do you want to go to this concert?" And she's like, "Well, yeah, I do, but I can't get a sitter for Adrian until like the doors were at 7, the concert started at 8,
right?" And
she's like, "I can't get a sitter for her until like right at 7, so we'd have to show up late." And I was like, "Well, that's fine, that's cool, whatever."
You only missed the opener, right?
And so the day of, the sitter was running late.
Right.
And before, I would have gotten upset. I would have been like, well, you need to hurry the fuck up.
Right.
Let's do this. But
I guess Adrian's coming to the concert.
I guess so. But but now I really, I'm the one who decided that it would be okay to go to this concert late to basically put my time frame at the whims of someone else. So like I have no right.
You made the bed. You can't sleep in it.
Exactly, and that's kind of where I'm going now. But
that's nice. I've got to learn. I'm going to work on that too.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's
learning how to accept things once they're out of your control, I guess.
Yeah, because I mean, at that point, like you can either just give yourself grief over it, or give someone else grief, and then feel like a dick afterwards, or
that's a good point. So all this ties into Code of Honor because
because it was kind of racist.
Yeah, it was incredibly racist. But
how do we get on that tangent?
Oh, the terrorists,
the little terrorists across the hall.
Also, their mother is in contentious terms with their father, who does not live there. I assume he's the father.
Which, I mean, that's another one of my jams. Is like
getting along with
my baby mama.
Right.
I mean, like
it's in your best interest to find a way to get along with your co-parent.
Yeah, because I mean, we don't have any kind of legal custody agreement.
Right.
It's I try to see my kid as much as possible.
Right.
And so I pretty much see her like every weekend.
Right.
And and she's cool with that, and baby mom was cool with that, and it's as long as everything is as long as